What's the problem here?
Well, the problem is basically we have a new strategy of bond money and House Bill 33 money that the voters approved this past February. 225 million in GO bonds and about $391 million in House Bill 33 or mill levy money to facilitate or to help construction. It's for construction and design. In order to do the new strategy, we recognized with this new strategy that there was some room for improvement in terms of tightening up our internal controls, increased accountability. And so what we've done in order to do that is change the way we normally process payment. I think it's a good move that we're doing this because it does provide increased internal controls, it does provide for some more accountability, and we're actually getting more detail, we're capturing more detail and monitoring more detail of expenditures down to the project level. But in doing so, it's created some delay in payment for some of our vendors. We're about 45 days out on some of these vendors. Typically we pay in 30 days or less, so we're about 15 days beyond that now.
How much are we delayed on bills?
About 15 days.
I'm sorry, how much money are we still needing to pay vendors?
When we originally started, and I was down here all day on Friday actually working with both facility design and construction and capital fiscal services, because those are the two pieces in Albuquerque Public Schools that need to work together to get these vendors paid. On Friday, the size and scope of the problem was about $18.5 million.
That's a good chunk of change.
It is a good chunk of change, but I think it's important to remember that we pay about $250 million a year just in construction.
We talked to some of the vendors who said they haven't been paid since the beginning of the year.
Right. That's, and going back to the new strategy that I talked about to begin with, we budgeted it for the first time this fiscal year, which began in July 1. So in order to add that increased accountability and strengthen those internal controls, we had to change the way we were loading the budgets for this coming fiscal year, and that's what's created the delay.
So then we're not necessarily behind 45 days in layman's terms. I'm just thinking if these guys haven't been paid since January, aren't we behind 8 months on some vendors?
You said July, not January.
Pardon me, they haven't been paid all this year. We've got plumbers, electricians, the guys that move, the portables, all
Right.
haven't been paid since January, they say.
Well, I don't know about January. I know that we have a problem since July. If they're saying they haven't been paid since January, well, it depends on what they're saying. Is it this fiscal year or this calendar year?
This calendar year, they have not been paid. They're at least 6 to 8 months behind in payment, they say.
I am not aware of issues that stem back to January. I know we are working on issues from July. And really the reasons that they haven't been paid since July is because we were changing the way we're doing the budgeting for this coming fiscal year, and that's delayed putting the purchase orders in the system to get them paid. If there's a January issue, I'm not aware of it. But
would you be willing to look into it?
Absolutely. And one of the things I want to tell you, Kim, and I want to make sure that we tell all of our vendors, is that it's great that they contact you. I think it's important that we remain transparent and there is that accountability, but I want to hear from the vendors too. Everybody's a priority, and I know this is an issue, and we're working through the stack. My goal is to have the log jam cleared by Friday, and to get this Friday. I am pulling out the stops, and we want to get most, if not all of them, paid, or at least contacted to give them a status of where they're at. But if I've got a small contractor out there or a vendor out there who's not going to make payroll, who's going to close their doors, I need to hear from them. And I'm happy to give my contact information so they can call me directly so I can move them to the top of the stack.
What's going to change in the next week that hasn't changed in the last 45 days? Are things just kind of getting cleared up in the system, or what changes, I guess?
I think the change is that I've sort of put a heightened sense of a priority, if you will, or it's basically my priority. I became aware of this a couple weeks ago, or actually last week. This is only my 5th week on the job. So when I became aware of it, I took it on as my own personal mission to make sure that this happens and to make sure this gets cleared. But above and beyond that, as soon as we get through this crisis, we need to debrief and figure out what we're going to do to make sure this never happens again.
And you've got to understand this. I mean, a lot of these businesses are small businesses and are struggling to get by, and so when they don't get paid for 30, 45, or whatever, however long it's been, it's extremely hard, and these people are not making their bottom line.
It is, you're absolutely right. And we are cognizant of the situation. We're cognizant of how they struggle and what happens when we delay payment to them. And I'm hoping that with these increased internal controls that we'll be able to track the dollars and be good stewards of public funds, but also facilitate more rapid payment to the vendors.
Was it, you said it was the money coming in, the bonds and everything kind of getting worked in. Is it a new system, or is it just because it's different money coming in and how it's funneled out?
Right. It's a new strategy, so it's new money that the voters approved in February. But what happens is you have old projects that are funded from the old money that the voters approved, as well as the new money. So you have projects funded from two different funding sources, and we're crossing fiscal years. So all of that together creates a perfect storm.
And it was, but you can just feel for these people. I mean, we don't mean to be here because we're nitpicky, but you owe them money.
No, exactly, and I want to hear from them. Like I said,
have them call your office directly.
Absolutely,
Okay. What number are you
absolutely.
gonna give them?
Let me see. I didn't even bring a business card,
That's
and I
okay.
don't even know my office. I'll give you my cell phone number. They can call me directly on my cell phone number, 259-4967.
Awfully brave of you.
Let me give you the office number.
No, I want to hear from them, Rigo. It's fine. I want to hear from the vendors.
Okay, I won't criticize you if you don't want to give your cell phone number, but, how many can there be? Couple dozen?
There could be, I haven't really seen this.
I don't know
I've seen the
either.
size
Okay.
and the scope of the problem. I mean, I've seen the number of invoices, but there are several invoices for one vendor.
Gotcha.
So I'm thinking there could be 20. Well, let's
Couple
see.
dozen maybe?
No, there could be 50, 60 vendors.